Hi, today I want to look at coaching, and particularly what it is and what it isn't. There are many roles that help inform, educate, train, or instruct others, but they're not coaching. They sometimes get used by coaches, but I think we need to be looking at isolating the coaching element if we want to develop our coaching skills and to understand when we're coaching and when we aren't. So these roles are mentor, teacher, consultant, therapist, instructor. They're all about helping people, but they're all about, if you like, having the learning go in rather than getting the learning out, which is what coaching is. So a mentor is generally a subject matter expert or an expert at the job that they're helping somebody to bed into. They offer solutions based on their experience. They're educating people. They're putting the learning in. A teacher, again, is a subject matter expert, or let's hope they are. They ask questions that they already know the answers to, so they're trying to lead their students to a particular conclusion. They're helping them to discover a particular thing. So they're imparting information, they educate, they're putting the learning in for the most part. That doesn't mean that teachers don't use coaching skills. It doesn't mean that mentors don't use coaching skills, but this is the definition of the job, if you like. Consultants are experts in the subject or in the area that they're working in. They analyze data or situations, they identify problems or issues, and they recommend or offer solutions. So the solution comes from within the consultant. Therapists, again, they're working with people. They're expert in this process, but they're generally dealing in the past. They're fixing issues that have been caused by the journey in life up to that point. They fix problems, they help people with phobias. Instructors, again, experts in the subject matter, hopefully. We offer solutions based on our experience of learners, or driving itself, of other road users, and the law. So we instruct, we're putting the learning in. Now again, instructors sometimes use coaching or mentoring techniques, but the job role is as it's laid out here. So if we want to develop our coaching skills, we have to understand what it is, and we have to isolate these skills and work on them. Now, a lot of the other roles can be replaced by coaching if we're coaching people in an area they've got expertise in. And when it comes to driving, people do, because it's all about spatial awareness and manual dexterity, getting the feel of things and understanding how things work. We have a great deal of experience in these areas, and we learned this when we were children. So what is it then? Well, a coach, the coaching role, a coach is someone who empowers people, helps people to identify their own goals, helps people to discover their own solutions and to formulate their own plans. They help people measure the impact of these activities and to set, again, their own goals. So the solutions all come from within the coachee. So we're getting the learning out as opposed to putting the learning in. So coaches are people who are not necessarily an expert, or if they are an expert, they don't use that expertise. We aren't a guru, and we're forward moving. We're dealing always in what comes next, not what has happened. We help people develop, but we don't direct them, other than using a process to help them, imagine new goals and ways of getting to them. We help people imagine different possibilities for themselves or for a situation that we're going back to, that we want to look for a different outcome. And we manage a coaching conversational model. Now there's loads of models. We'll come to those in a bit. So coaching is fairly simply a relationship, the right environment for it to happen naturally, and a conversation, a means to identify the coachee's goals and needs and pursue and reach those goals, working out what works and what does not for the coachee, and having them work that out and having them input. Now there may be barriers in place for them, being willing to do that, but we'll come back to that in a bit. So this relationship and conversation leads to empowerment. The learner developing the confidence in themselves and in their ability to make meaningful decisions in terms of their own development. And they own the process. The learner owns their own journey and, if you like, calls the shots. So what do we need? Obviously there's a lot more to this, but this is just the basics of it. There are three elements. The first thing is our way of being. That's our ability to create the right environment for learning to happen. We then need a set of coaching skills and then a process to allow us to apply this to the coachee and help them make those meaningful decisions. So our way of being, what's that all about? Well, it's creating the right environment. We need to be non-judgmental, honest, humble, empathetic, inspiring, and we must have an unconditional positive regard for the coachee. We must never pigeonhole people. I hear this all the time by people who think that they're coaching, and yet they'll say, well, it takes all people longer, doesn't it? The challenge always has to be then, well, what are you basing that on? It's preconceived ideas. So we make people fit the pigeonhole because that's what we expect. So we've got to be really careful. We have to be fairly neutral. And this is, we do occasionally, of course, have to input for safety reasons. But you must understand that you're not coaching in that instance. So it's all about creating the right environment, the way we are with people. We need to develop good EQ, emotional intelligence. We need to read body language, all that kind of stuff. So this is very complex, explained in a simple way. Our skills, we need to be able to help the coachee identify goals that are SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-framed. So we must be able to, let's take for example, if their goal is to feel more confident about something, well, how do you measure that? You can't measure it because it's within them. So scaling's used, but we have to be very careful because scaling is quite judgmental. So you must never input on the scale or the decision of them as to what their scaling is. So you would perhaps say, well, if not being confident was 1 and being as confident as it was possible to be would be 10, where would you place yourself? Let's assume they say 6. So okay, what would a 10 look like? Well, it would be like this. Do you think we can achieve that today? Well, I'm not really sure, so maybe we need to look for an 8. What would an 8 look like? How will we know whether we've made it? So I mean, that's an art in itself, helping people set goals. We need to listen in an active way, and that's learning to zone into not only what's being said, but the way that it's being said. We need to show that we're listening. When somebody's talking to you, make sure that you're constantly, letting them know you're listening. Learning to trust the silence when you've asked a question. Just be quiet. Wait for the learner, the coachee, to break that silence, because while they're being silent, they're just thinking. When they're done thinking, they'll come up with something. That might just be, I don't know, but they will come up with something. We paraphrase and summarize. Oh, so you want to do such as, oh, you'd like to feel that level of confidence. So if I've got this right, what you're saying is, and it shows that we're listening, it shows that we're investing in that person. And whilst this is a coaching skill, it's also a part of our way of being. Great questioning. Now, we need questions that unlock the potential of that person, that help us to understand what they understand. So questioning should not be to find out if they know what you think they should know, to get an answer to a question that you already know the answer to. It's to find out what's going on inside their head. How are you deciding how to? Oh, I noticed that happened there. I noticed that you put the handbrake on there. Tell me about the thinking process there. Oh, I noticed that you're doing 30 here. Do you think that's the right speed? And they go, yes or no. You say, okay, what are you basing that on? So we're trying to find out what's going on inside their head. Because the reason that coaching works so well is it uses their map of the world, their journey in life up to this point, and every experience they've had, to help them understand the new information. That's how human beings learn. If you watch the How We Learn video that precedes this, or it should precede this, you'll see that that's how people learn. We need to help the coachee overcome barriers. You can't break those barriers down for them. You can assist, but it's the bit that we get where we say to them, what do you want to do today? I don't know. What would you like me to do? I'd like you to tell me what to do. Now, if you tell them what to do and then delude yourself that you're being client-centered, you're sadly and utterly mistaken. That isn't really what they want to do. They're just scared. They don't want to commit. So we have to ask a different kind of question. What do you want to do today? I don't know. You say, okay, what would you like to work on today? Anything in particular? Now, of course, with something like the LD system, we're well served here, because we just say, well, This is the skill level we're at. Which one of those do you fancy tackling today? So it's all about having them buy in as well. So it's all very well and good if you're creating the right environment, but nothing really works until they settle into that environment and they feel comfortable. So expect a lot of I don't know to begin with. And it's part of your job as the coach to dance around that and make sure you're affording them the opportunity to feel empowered and to buy in. If they're saying I don't know, you've asked a bad question. That's it. That's the end of it. There's no argument here. If you're constantly getting I don't know, you're asking bad questions. We need to inspire individuals. We need to have them desperate for that next lesson to start. And we need to help them develop onward plans as a result of a reflective phase, which is what the chunking methodology is all about that I always bang on about. We do a little burst of activity, reflect, review, what's next? If you've got the right environment, you've got the right skills, and you're applying the right process, we use GROW as it happens, more of that in a minute, then the learner will buy in, the coachee will buy in. So lots of different processes. We use GROW or T-GROW. So GROW is goal, reality, options, way forward. What is it we want to get out of today's session? What do we know already that helps us with that? Do we have the time? Or do we need to split this into smaller chunks? What's our options? And then what's the way forward? Or do we have the will to commit to that? T-GROW is the same, except that we're starting with topic. Again, system like the LD system, we have the topic at the top of the page. That's the topic, and then we're going to break it down into individual goals for that topic. There's OSCAR, which is very similar. Outcome. What's the outcome you want from today's session or this little burst of activity? What's our current situation? What choices can we make, and what are the merits or disadvantages of each? What actions will we take, and then how will we review it? The CLEAR method is contracting, listening, exploring, action, review. You see, they're very similar. What do we want to work on? And it must be the coachee's goal. How are we going to go about it? Is it a realistic goal? So we have that reality check, so we can intervene at that point. That's the job of the coach. That sounds like an awful lot you're biting off there. Can we do that in one go? Do we have the time here? Can we do it in this location? Then looking at our options, way forward, commit to the plan, execute that plan, reflect, review, time for a new plan. Was the lesson plan adapted? So making it happen. We need contracting between you and the coachee. The coach and the coachee agree who does what, when, how, why, what happens if this happens, what happens if I'm late, what happens if you're late, what are we doing on pricing. We need to be ethical, professional. We need to get the buy-in from the coachee. Now, you'll get more of that later than you will at the start, unless they happen to know you. Or you've taught somebody else, or you've coached somebody else rather, that they know. Helping them to see that they have the necessary skills needed and the wherewithal to set and achieve their own goals. So that's what it's all about. This is all part of our way of being and the methods that we apply. So it sounds ridiculously simple, and there's a reason for that. It is. But to get this to work, if you mix it in with instruction or mentoring or that kind of stuff, it's difficult, because which hat are you wearing? So we developed the 3-hat approach to do that, where you've got your advisor hat, your safety hat, and your coaching hat. The more you isolate and develop these skills, the more you'll be able to use coaching almost all of the time. If you're biting off the right size of chunk, and it's only a small step, you should never really, or very rarely, need to intervene. You should very rarely need to give a lot of instruction. So if you get good at coaching, now how does that fit in with Part 3 exams and standards checks? Well, if you're struggling with it, it's probably because your technique isn't good enough, or your learner doesn't buy in that you take for the exam, or your coachee. So take somebody that works well with you, because it will work that way. If it's not working, it's you. It's always you. It will always be you. It's not them. You're not operating the right way to allow coaching now, because coaching is the way that human beings naturally learn. So, if it's not working, it's you. You've not asked the right questions. You haven't achieved the buy-in. If it is working, it's you. Bingo. It won't work when they don't care or try. Somebody else is paying for it perhaps, or they don't really want to learn to drive. They're not given a chance. Give it time. And if we're attempting anything other than behavioural change, it won't work with nuclear physics. But if we want to change people's behaviour, which is what we're about in driver training, then it'll work. It will work when the issue is behavioural, if they're given a chance and they're willing to change. So it's a very powerful tool. Now, I don't believe it's a tool in the toolbox. Coaching is the toolbox because it's the way human beings learn to drive, learn anything really. Instruction, mentoring, all the other stuff is a tool in the coaching toolbox. So coaching should be about who we are and the way we go about stuff. So making it happen for you, well, the key thing is to realize that it's a journey. And that it will take time. There'll be hard work involved. You will make mistakes. But the reality is perseverance will yield results, and it will yield big results. So if we just remind ourselves all the time that we're in the game of empowering the individual and getting the learning out, anything you do to try and make that happen will be counterproductive. We must empower the learner to want to make it happen and to come up with their own goals. So you're their guide, if you like. You're not there to educate them or to train them or to teach them. If we're coaching, we're getting the learning out. It's unbelievably powerful, and it halves the time it takes because they only ever learn anything once. You never have to go back. You look at these lessons on YouTube that you see me with these learners. Do we ever do another lesson on the same subject? Because it's nailed. So the journey is worth traveling because you'll feel great about it at the end. Trust me. I will be putting together lots and lots of little workshops to do with these little bits and pieces and how to make the switch. I also want to run a lot of Zoom sessions so that we can get together and say, well, how's it working for you? So we need you to be learning in this way. So you put a plan together, you execute the plan, you reflect, you review, you put a new plan in place. So by coaching you, it helps you to coach others because the process stays the same throughout. And the new changes that we're making to all the stuff we're doing in our training department is all about that. It's the same process for absolutely everybody. It's beautiful, it's simple, it's monstrously effective. So I look forward to helping you along that journey, those of you who want to take it, and I'll see you in the next video.